My name is Nick Williams. I'm project forester with the Northern Laramie Range Integrated Forest Management Project. Federal grant given to Natrona County in conjunction with Wyoming State Forestry Division. Kind of based myself around a cost share program that's available to landowners on Casper and Money Mountain. So just to give you a little bit of background on what I deal with. We do a lot of workshops with this issue here in the Casper area, and our primary concerns are forest health. So we have quite a bit of history with dealing with this. So moving on, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about the biology and getting into the treatment measures that are available to landowners for dealing with mountain pine beetle. Just dealing with any type of pest or insect or anything, grasshoppers, anything, because it's important to understand the basic biology of any insect, and that's how we deal with it. Is we have to be able to know what we're fighting to be able to treat on a regular basis. So, mountain pine beetle has a 1-year life cycle in all of Rocky Mountain forests, and that holds true to all of our forests here in Wyoming. Adult beetles emerge and fly from May to September. That's going to vary based on aspect and elevation. It attacks any susceptible host, so almost any species of pine, or all species of pine that we have in Wyoming, are susceptible to mountain pine beetle, even non-native such as Austrian pine, Scotch pine. Female lays about 75 eggs, which hatch in about 2 weeks, and after reproduction, the adults die in the tree that they attack by September, and then the eggs hatch and the larvae overwinter under the bark of that tree, and then the following summer they develop into pupa and then adults, and then exit the following year. So we got a little bit of a diagram here to show you what we're talking about. So we see it clearly what's going on right there, and this is true for all of our forests that we have on within the state. So we have an attacking adult in that summer, the first summer. They lay their eggs and they overwinter as larvae. The tree, as you see, will start to turn yellow to kind of an off-color green during this time of year in most places, May, June. Then we'll start to see the tree turn red as it progresses into July and August of the following year, where what has happened, the adult has exited that tree and gone to attack a new tree. So this basically teaches you that, as the tree gets hit, it's green all the way through the next year. So once a tree's red, it's beyond hope. There's not really much hope for us taking care of it, and there's no more beetles in that tree, so it's no longer a concern to us besides being a dead tree. So, mountain pine beetle. So some of the major species that we have affected by mountain pine beetle will be ponderosa pine, lodgepole, limber, white bark. This insect has one major brood a year, like we just talked about. And it depends on elevation and aspect. So we're going to start talking about some of the symptoms and signs of what to be looking for with mountain pine beetle. As far as symptoms go, we're looking for dying, that chlorotic, some of that yellowing. It's starting to get to where the adults are getting ready to exit that tree. Some signs would be where the pitch tubes are at, sawdust, woodpeckers, and we're going to look at some examples of all this stuff here in a second. So here's what we've got. Let's say this is your property or your neighbor's property, and you're out wandering through the woods, and what do you see here? You start looking around, and something's not looking quite right. Look over there at the right side of you see some green trees, and you start looking over there to the left, and all of a sudden you start seeing some older dead trees. You see that one over there on the far left. It's completely red. There's hardly any needles in there. So probably what happened there was mountain pine beetle attacked that tree. In our case, it would probably have been in 2009, and so the tree died. And then we have beetles that exited that tree and went and attacked some other ones. And in that main tree in the center of the screen there, we start to see a little bit of discoloring, some redding of the needles, and it's starting to look a little yellow towards the top. And so what you guys should be trying to cue in on something's going on at that point, where there's something going on. You got to be interested in trying to figure out what's going on in this point in my forest. So it's a good opportunity to start moving in closer to those trees and taking a look around. And this is what you might see on those trees as you get closer to them. you're starting to see what is clearly the pitch tubes. And so what this is and here's another photo of it on launchable pine, where mountain pine beetle has entered at that point, an adult beetle has entered at that point of the tree, and that's the natural response of the tree, is to try to eject whatever damage or damaging agent. And so the tree pitches or tries to push them out, and so we call that a pitch tube at that point. I mean, they look like popcorn. When they're fresh, they're really soft. It's just like fresh sap. So that's a real common symptom of an infested tree. And then when you start looking even closer, if you start peeling back bark in places, what you can see is this. And so now we see the main gallery running parallel to the axis of the tree. And then we see perpendicular movement of the eggs. And so we look over there right next to that thumb, those little white dots in there are the larvae. And so this is probably March, April time of year, and you can see those larvae still developing quite well. This is another real common one, especially that we have here in Laramie Range, is woodpecker damage. And so what you'll see is, and there's a picture of I think it's Downy going to town on that tree. So what he's doing is he's peeling off that outer bark, and he's trying to eat that larva. So it's actually a really common food source for them. They're a natural predator, the mountain pine beetle. And so this is what you might see around the base of that tree that the woodpecker's been working on, just flakes of bark just pulled out all over around the tree. And it's real nice to see this time of year, higher elevations, where the woodpeckers are pulled off. You can see that just laying right on top of the snow. So then this is another way, say during the summer, sometimes the pitch tubes may not be so evident, but you start looking around the base of that tree and you'll start seeing something else. So if you look at the lower left-hand corner of that photo and you start seeing what is called the frass or the sawdust, pretty much it's the excrement of mountain pine beetle, where they have been successful at attacking the tree, and it's pushed out of that entrance hole and it builds up around the base of the tree. And so there's a more close-in photo of that. So I mean, it just looks like sawdust pretty much. So I mean, this is kind of a common story. I mean, what you can do is, this is basically the same thing as what we were just looking at with the forest setting. You're in a field and you see some dying trees, and you're getting closer, and you start looking around and you start seeing, wow, there's a lot of trees that are hit right here. So this would be an area of concern when you're walking through your own property, starting to look at what's going on. And so here's an excellent example of what Brian Anderson was talking about earlier with kind of the ratio. So what we see here is in that blue flagging, that one photo, that one tree on the left-hand side with the blue flagging, that tree was probably hit in 2009. It was the only tree in the stand that was hit, and so it was left alone and not treated. And it was able to, the beetles that came out of that tree infested all the trees that are wrapped in pink flagging to the right. You can sit there and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere at eight trees were newly infested from that one dead one in that following year. So let's talk for a minute about some of the direct control options that are available to U.S. landowners for treatment of mountain pine beetle infested trees. So these are proven techniques that will prevent more mountain pine beetle from infesting new trees. And they're going to vary depending on where you are and the type of species of tree, and then your ability to deal with infested wood as well. So these are the most common ones, and these are the ones that state forestry suggests for dealing with mountain pine beetle infested trees in Wyoming. So the first major one is the removal of infested trees to an area outside of we usually say a 2-mile radius. So if you have the ability to cut a piece of wood and cut the tree down and remove the wood from the forest, say out into the prairie somewhere that has to be 2 miles from the nearest pine tree. So the idea there is when they emerge from the tree, they're not going to have anywhere to go. The beetles are just going to fly onto the prairie and die. And then the other option, we suggest this one, you can kind of talk to your local forester about it. To burn infested portions of trees, and that's really just during the winter. So basically what you're doing there is you're taking like a drip torch, which is a gasoline diesel mix, and you're pouring it over the stem of the tree. And and igniting it. And then what you're doing there is the time it takes for that fuel to burn is enough time to kill that larva underneath the bark of the tree. Physically peeling the bark off the tree is another way of doing it. Chipping the infested portions of the tree. And then we're going to get into these solar treatments a little more here in a second, and we'll explain that and take a look at them. So the two most common techniques that are used are removal of the infested tree 2 miles to the nearest living pine tree, or the solar technique, which we'll show you here in a second. So this is a better look at the solar technique. So this is real common that people that have been doing this for a long time have used this particular treatment option for many years, and they've had a lot of success with it. And it's really great for, in this particular, what this photo is showing, real steep, rocky terrain. It's hard to get equipment into. It's hard to haul wood out of. And so what you'll see here is, actually where people have cut down the infested portions of the tree, stacked them in such a way, and then they've wrapped them in clear plastic. So a couple things about it, clear plastic allows radiation to come through the plastic and heat up that inner bark enough to kill the larva if there's enough sunlight. And then the other thing that's going on here is you look around the base of that plastic, see how tightly to the ground it is sealed. So the idea there is you're basically making a jar. You have to seal it as tight as you can with rocks, branches, duff, and then there won't be any way for those beetles to exit out of underneath that plastic. And then you can look to that back of that photo, and what they did actually there is they just dropped the entire tree and wrapped it as it was. And so I think there's a better photo of that here in a second, but it's just, look at it here, you can see how tightly, again, that it is sealed to the ground. That's key when you're doing this. And so there's that single tree that's wrapped. So a couple things to look at here. They're using duct tape, they're using staples, any way to get that tightly sealed to the tree. And so the best way to tell you've done a good job, you start looking there at the bottom center of the picture, and you see the sweat, the water molecules building on the inside of the plastic. That means you're doing a good job. It is completely sealed, and there's enough heat going into that plastic where the beetles are basically suffocating. They're going to die from the heat exposure underneath that bark. So before you wrap, this is what you need to be trying to look at doing. Taking your chainsaw and running the length of the tree, we call this scoring. So you're going to score the bark in 3 or 4 different places on this thing. You may have to roll it once or twice to do this. But so basically what you're doing is once you wrap it in plastic, there's going to be better air movement underneath the bark and encouraging that actual destruction of the larva. And so this is just just showing what it looks like underneath the plastic. So you kind of get an idea for what needs to go under there. You don't have to put branches and limbs under there. It just needs to be the larger diameter wood, that any potential place that the beetles are encased under that larva. And so, in here we get kind of back into the biology a little bit. So what we're actually seeing here in this photo is you're getting a really good look at that blue stain fungus. There's a lot of new research out there that's kind of proven that the blue stain fungus is a real big portion of what's killing the tree. It's clogging the water movement of the roots to the needles. It's inhibiting that kind of connection. So that's just a little bit of about what's going on there as far as the treatment options that you have as a landowner.